Hexen, the Gentleman's Doom. Packed with puzzles and fantasy beasts and all sorts of sticky situations, luckily the developers saw fit to provide the player with a broad array of items to pick up to take the edge off the devilry. In-game, you can hold a maximum of 25 of each item, and considering exactly how many items there are, it's anyone's guess where they get stored, especially for the fighter. Who can say? Who can say? Let's go. Disc of Repulsion. This repulsing disc is very useful for all classes, and as such, you'll forget it's there and likely won't use it. That can be said for a lot of Hexen inventory items, and speaking as someone who's played this game for decades, it's terribly, terribly true. With the class name of RT Blast Radius, that should tell you all you need to know. The disc, when used, throws back monsters and projectiles alike with an invisible force, which is pretty dang neat. You can use them on other players to throw them into pits on multiplayer, as well as bad guys too, and to redirect enemy projectiles to kick off infighting. When players or enemies hit a wall from being blasted, they take damage, as you'd expect, so you can fight your way through Hexen with enough discs and enough walls. And they're generally scattered around quite generously. If you're speedrunning, these little beauties are worth their weight in gold. So it's a pretty versatile artifact. But I still forget to use them. Crater of Might. Due to the absence of a backpack or its derivatives to help you boost your ammo capacity, the Crater of Might is instead like a supercharge for ammo. When used, these magical cups fill up your mana reserves to full. These are exceptionally useful, especially when facing down bosses in Hexen, as your best weapons will drain your ammo pool like a bastard. If you see one of these in-game, never resist the urge to pick them up, or you'll deeply regret it. Dark Servant. If you've played Heretic at all, you'll know just how devilish the Mauletor can be to fight. However, now they're on your side, and you can call them up to fight alongside you against the forces of evil. Isn't that nice? Simply throw them into an open area and watch them expand like one of those foam dinosaurs you chuck into water. With 2500 health, it can take a bit of a beating to defeat these guys, which is good. But their summoning is also limited to about 25 seconds, so make the most of them before the clock runs out. Pro tip. Use them in boss fights to distract hordes of monsters while you take the boss head-on yourself without being bothered. They will stamp, whack, and ram any monster you throw them in front of. Just don't make the mistake of throwing them against a wall or in a confined space, or they won't be summoned and you'll feel like a right tit. Sad face. Quartz Flask. One of the most common artifacts in Hexen and arguably the most useful. When used, this magic medikit gives the player 25% health to a maximum of 100%. If you're playing on the easiest skills, the flasks will be used automatically when your health is getting low, that's nice. Always make sure you have as many of these little beauties tucked up your wizard's sleeve as you can. If you see them, pick them up. Especially when playing on hard difficulties. Or you dead. Dragon Skin Bracers. Now, we're not getting into Hexen's bizarre armor system here, that's a whole video on its own, but what the bracers effectively do is they boost your armor class by 20% or 4 armor points, up to the maximum for that class, which is 20 points for the fighter, 18 for the cleric, and 16 for the mage. These extra 4 points from this artifact can be stacked too. So if you've got a ton of bracers, just whack that use key and get swole. Stay tuned for the armor video, all shall be revealed. Icon of the Defender. These little chess rooks are pretty damn useful and again work differently for each class. Definitely save these up for boss fights. Some would say the effects are game breaking, but they're a very rare item, so... When used, the fighter has limited invulnerability without the black and white screen nonsense, thank God, which sounds neat, but it's actually better for the other classes. The cleric is also invulnerable, but periodically strobes in and out of intangibility, so projectiles will pass through you when you're fully faded. For the mage, things get even saucier, as he's invulnerable but projectiles bounce off him, much in the same way as the Heresiarch. Lovely bit of game design right there. Fléchette. These little green bottles are highly effective crowd management tools that once more have different effects depending on class. The fighter throws timed grenades that can be flicked out like a spray of Benjamins at a ye old strip joint, exploding all in their path. The mage suspends the flechette in midair, which then lingers for a moment before exploding, a timed bomb. Good if you stack them when ducking around a corner from monsters, or if you get them jammed up in a doorway. But the cleric has the tastiest slice. Once dropped, they burst into a spreading cloud of poisonous gas, which even freezes centaurs and stops them from blocking. It's so damn good. It's also great against bosses. God damn, the cleric is OP, but I can forgive him, because he's so cute. Pork you later. Just like the morph ovum in Heretic, this artifact polymorphs the forces of evil, turning them not into chickens though, but oinking, squealing swine. When used, a spray of golden spheres shoot from the player, impignating any non-boss monster, making them, so very easy to kill. However, beware any reflective properties like centaur shields, or you'll be pigged up yourself. Luckily, the effects are temporary, but in pig form you can still interact with switches and indeed fight. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Boots of speed. These are exactly what you think they are. Speed boosters. They up your alacrity by 50%, which is awesome for the mage, neat for the cleric, and ridiculous for the fighter. You leave behind a wicked blur effect when moving, and if you're not careful, you can run into your own projectiles. Ouch. They also appear to make you fly faster if you have them applied at the same time as the Wings of Wrath. Very cool. Torch. What puzzle-solving fantasy shooter would be complete without your character wielding a flaming torch to see their way through dungeons and caverns alike? But it's literally the light goggles from Doom, which turn even the most beautifully rendered environments into blocks of drab blech, albeit with a bit of a light flicker. At least you won't fall down holes so easily, though. Those who play on GZ Doom will enjoy a nice golden glow surrounding the player, which takes away a little bit of the blech and adds what you could charitably call ambience. Mystic Urn. A very mysterious urn, which appeared in Heretic, and as Hexen is part of the same Raven Cinematic Universe TM, we have them here too. When used, they boost the player's health back to 100%, and that's it. What more can you say? It's a supercharge that is limited in its healing ceiling and looks pretty cool too. Wings of Wrath. With these little babies, it's not just a Freets that will rule the skies. When used, the player is able to hover through the air, giving the impression of controlled flight. A rather tricky feat if you're not using mouse look, and it can take a little bit of practice to get down pat. Something I wasn't even aware of until writing this video is that the wings can be used either for a brief period or until the end of the level, or hub exit if you're in a hub. I just thought they always had a timer, so that's cool. This difference is determined in the WOD's map info, and I'm guessing would be implemented so as to not break certain levels or sequences, but then again, you can't hoard Wings of Wrath, so you either need to use them in the map you picked them up in, or they disappear. Poof. Banishment device. When used, this groovy-looking cross will unleash a projectile that will teleport any monster hit by it to a random deathmatch start. I guess it's useful if there's a bad guy stuck and you just want to give him the flick. To be honest, I've not made it a habit of using these before, perhaps I should. I'm sure there was a good reason they were included in the game, but I'm yet to find out what that is. Chaos device. Much like the banishment device, but this time the player gets yeeted to one of the player starts at the beginning of the level, removing any morphing magic that may have been crippling you. Much less random than the deathmatch starts, and it's extremely useful. In fact, I can think of a certain situation where it's mandatory. Getting the swamp key in Hub 2. I still have no idea how else to escape this room without one of the chaos devices. They're so damn useful. If you have enough, they can also save time with backtracking too. Excelsior! Mystic Ambit. A multiplayer-only artifact, this is a great item for supporting your fellow travelers in the dangerous world of Hexen. Resembling a grey scroll emblazoned with a blue rune, when this artifact is activated, it poops out a bonus for each class, which is kinda trash for some, and fair to middling for others. For the fighter, it grants you 1. count it. 1 extra point of armor. Rubbish! The mage gets an endowment of mana, 50 points, plus an additional random amount ranging from 0 to 49. It will always fill up your blue mana first, and then if that's full, green mana gets a top up. It's fine, but I think it would have been better to fill up both mana meters simultaneously? I don't know. The Cleric's endowment adds further credence to the suspicion that the developers had a mad boner for this class, as it gets 50 health plus an additional random amount ranging from 0 to 49. If this sounds a bit crap to you, remember that health can't go over 100, so it's pretty good. However, it still boils down to yet another healing item, so I don't know. But that's if you're considering the item's effect on the player. What makes this special is that the effects also get applied to other nearby players, so if you're all clustered with your scrolls in hand and are playing as different classes, you can make a very powerful buffing boundary around yourselves. I've never used this item as I've never played Hexen multiplayer. Hexen 2, yes. Hexen 1, no. Other interesting info about Hexen artifacts. Well, I for one find it interesting that the Tome of Power didn't make it into Heretic's successor, but I guess they might have made the weapons too powerful, or they didn't have time, or just didn't want to use it. If you know an answer to this, please let me know. If you're playing on GZ Doom and use the Indiana cheat code to get all the artifacts, there'll be a strange golden egg. It just acts like the Porculator if you use it, firing out a string of little golden eggs, and it will transform bad guys and they'll attack and are killable, but they'll be invisible, due to, I assume, missing sprites? I wonder if this was a copy over of the Morph Ovum from Heretic, as it looks the same except it's gold. It doesn't appear in DSDA, and I don't think I've seen it when I used to play with DOSBox. Very curious. Additionally, if you use Indiana in GZ Doom, there will be 2 icons of the Defender. I haven't seen this crop up in other source ports or in DOSBox. One is normal, the one on the left, but the one on the right turns the screen golden like the Immortality Ring from Heretic. Yet more leftover or copied stuff, I assume? Very curious. And in Hexen version 1.0, there was a silly oversight whereby the names of the Chaos device and the Disc of Repulsion were swapped, which doesn't mean an awful lot, but it caused some confusion at the time. And that kind of wraps up Hexen's artifacts. I hope you found this enlightening or even useful, and I likewise hope that this info will increase your enjoyment of this ancient game. Either way, if you're playing Hexen to any degree, you're a scholar and a gent, and you most definitely chose wisely.